Hari Om Swamiji, we're so happy to see Swamiji, and we're really looking forward to hearing Swamiji's wisdom, because I have to say, parenting teenagers is very difficult.
Hari Om Swamiji, thank you so much for doing these talks. We really need the guidance.
Hari Om, I know what difficulties you're going through, because I did go through the same difficulties bringing you all up. So I will share my experience with you all.
Thank you, Swamiji. Can I ask the first question, Swamiji?
Yes.
Swamiji, when the kids are young and we have to care for them, it's easier to know our role. But as they get older, it's a lot more confusing. To help us know what to do, can Swamiji explain what the purpose of having children is from a spiritual perspective?
As you know, children grow, and when they are going through their different stages of their growth, they are continuously changing, as well as their interaction with the parents change. But unfortunately, even though I perfectly understand that parenting is such a delicate, subtle art, but it's very important to recognize that parents have to also grow with their children. Now, it's very interesting, no? That when we are little children, we want to grow up. But once you pass 30, you want to always remain at 30. You don't want to grow up. But even in parenting, your relationship with the children has to evolve. Now, when they are small, you are their nurturer, their protector. In fact, you're not even their guide. You have to just tell them what to do. And they have to do it because they do not have at that time their independent ability, choice, or even at that moment as their intelligence is developing, they will follow what you say. And you feel very much in control of their lives. You think you're doing the best for them, and you try to bring them up to the best of your capacity as loving parents. But as they grow into teenagers, they have their own independent thinking. They have their own independent thoughts. But parents, and it is true, you also realize it. You might be now close to your 50s, but at the same time, your parents still treat you as kids, still command you, still tell you what to do. This is where parents must also evolve. Now, if you say the spiritual part of it, spirituality is all about initially your mental growth. And therefore, with people whom you love, as they grow, you also grow with them. And therefore, this is the advantage you have when you are bringing up children with love, with dharma, the right values, with the right purpose and reason. You're bringing up your children with love, and I will use a word that brings about a lot of questioning, but without attachment. Attachment is where we depend on the children for our solace, happiness, etc. In love, we are the givers. In love, you evolve together. In attachment, both try to restrict each other's to conform to what they want. whether it is children or whether it is parents. So for the parents, it is very important to bring up their children with love but without attachment. In that process, they actually grow themselves with the children. Their relationship transforms, evolves to, at that moment, be the right kind of relationship with that age of children. I know I've met so many parents, and even when I meet your little children, suddenly you see they've grown up. You wish that, they were still those little kids who would be obedient to you, sweet, etc., even though naughty. But they're teenagers now. They will have their independent thinking. They will be even defiant. They won't listen to you. You're outdated. All these things will keep on coming. But if you're sensitive to them and you're ready to evolve your relationship, your inner growth with them, you will find that you will be able to find a happy medium of communication with them where you understand them and remember your teenage days, and they also begin to have that confidence that you are their parents and you are their best or the most important loving well-wisher of theirs.
Swamiji, that was really, really helpful advice, Swamiji. I'm going to try my best to do it.
Swamiji, at this age, they don't always listen to us. And sometimes we can see that they're making a mistake. Sometimes the mistakes are small mistakes, like, they've procrastinated, and then when it comes to the deadline, then they get very stressed. Even that is hard for us to see. But at other times, it's more significant. So like if we see them choosing a subject that just doesn't suit them, and then the consequences for that are a little bit more long-term, a little bit worse. And those mistakes, it's very hard for us to watch, Swamiji. What do we do in this situation?
Yes, all these situations are very delicate. They are tricky also. But if you get to the very foundation of parenting, when there is love, you are sensitive of their wants, and at the different stages of life, when you have created the right value systems in them, as well as you have created that identification with them, which in the previous sessions I have spoken of. But our rishis have given us a very beautiful format, and maybe I'll repeat that in all the different sessions, is that Panchavarshani Lalayet. That the first 5 years, when we give affection to the children, not pamper them, not spoil them, but be affectionate to them, that's where we build the bond of trust and faith. The next 10 years is the training period. Now, most parents understand the training period is educate them, give them just information, dogmas, or get them to, just get a degree, get marks. So knowledge is all about just memorizing, just learning, presenting to get marks. This is, I'm saying, as we see happening in education system. We make them go through that, but real education, and at that stage, education is not just in schools, but the education that happens at home through demonstration, through making them think and inquire with the right attitude and methodology. When I say the right attitude and methodology, see, just to give you an example, as we become teenagers, we have an inquiring mind and a spirit of one's own ego and independence. This is beginning to evolve to train them to become adults and to become providers themselves. So if you understand how this progresses, that those 10 years, where it is said tadayet, and tadayet means to train them, not as it's badly misunderstood that you should discipline them, scold them, or spank them, which is so badly translated. Tadayet means they should be trained, they should be educated. And I again repeat, being educated is not just school education, which should be training them in that, but it's the home education where through discussion, which we call the scientific method, through discussion, through observation, and through gaining from the experienced people such as parents, grandparents, teachers, even though it is indirect knowledge, and then being able to process it in their own mind to come with the right conclusion, and even in the conclusion to be able to be humble enough to go and ask those who are their elders to confirm that their thinking is right. Now, I have seen many of you bringing up your children in this manner and beautifully. But at the same time, each child is different. Each child picks up differently. Now, that evolution, which I was saying in the first question that you asked, of evolving, so parent also must understand that the child's independence has come about. The child is grown up now to have his own individuality and is coping with his individuality, which can become egotistic, or it can give him a confident self-esteem. Then at the same time, they are influenced by trends, and this is where the main problem that parents face and the conflict comes with children. There are trends that come about. They have got their own peer pressures. They have got their own fascinations. They cannot be clear about their wants and their goals, their likes and dislikes, and what is necessarily long-term benefit goals for them. And I even know that many of you parents have even taught your children there. But remember, they have to now deal with their sense of individuality. And because they are so used to taking information, it just switches from parents to peers. So they're following their own format, but with the parents, they want to show and express their sense of growth. If you understand and you're sensitive, then as they become teenager, you have a conversation with them as a friend. And therefore it says, mitravat acharit, as a friend, so that they consider you as their peer. That you seem to understand their trends. You seem to understand their peers.
So, Swamiji, I want to be friends with my kids, but they don't want to be friends with me.
They want a different type of friendship, let me tell you that. You want to be a friend like their young friends, and if that's what you want to be, or you be a friend so that they listen to you, that should not be the intention behind that. Friendship means that they can communicate with you openly, and at the same time, if they want to communicate and open up with others who are wise, allow them to do that. Because in friendship, that's the beauty. You don't mind sharing your friend for the well-being of your friend. So that is the attitude of friendship that parents must have with the children. Once they have that kind of communication with you, and of course there are no ideal situations, as easy it is pointed out, we very well know how difficult it happens because a relationship works on both sides. And sometimes some children are still coping up with their ego, their sense of individuality, and therefore arrogance comes in, stubbornness comes in. And there is where I can see where you have a problem, that you know that they are making a very wrong career choice, or sometimes in life even a partner choice. And if you see today's trend, whether it is through movies or television series, there's something very nice which is being pointed out, that don't be just restricted or restrictive parents telling the children what they should do, and children should just do what their parents tell them. They should go for their passion, they should go for what they have, what to say, their drive that they have, or just marry the person whom they like, when they still don't know the difference between love, understanding, practicalities. And I know these are the discussions parents are trying to have with the children from their experience. So of course, as you know, when I speak to the teenagers, I make them understand this from their parents' standpoint. And two things which personally I make the teenagers understand: that yes, go for your passion. And this is where parents should understand that difference between passion and their aptitude. And I know parents get frustrated because sometimes they see the aptitude. I'm not talking about those parents who just want to impose that no, being an accountant is just necessary, at least you got a sure job for the job's sake, which is also wrong from the parents' standpoint. So when a child wants to say become a movie, they will not say actor, they'll say movie star. But they must be made to understand that every actor does not become a high income earning popular personality for which they may be wanting to become a movie star, say, or take a course in that. At that time, they only see their own desire, their own want, and they do not see that later on income is also important. While very often parents think only about the income and don't see what is the aptitude of the child. Therefore, from both ways, there has to be that kind of understanding and communication. Now, there are certain incidents, and that is where earlier this trend came about, that I'm not talking just about a course, that you see that your child is, and you know it's not just because of your prestige or your personal ego, or you want something out of your child, but you know the child is doing something very harmful. Then there is where, if you have the means, yes, you should assert and you should stop it. But this is a very minute part where something like this happens. But the remaining, a lot can be made to make them understand. Yet, after all the understand, as well as the last resort, when they're doing something terribly wrong, to restrain them, like if they're getting into certain addictions, they're getting into some very bad company, or getting into some form of crime of corruption. I'm giving extreme cases, where there is no way. You have to stop them, you have to control them. And when you do that, they're naturally going to revolt, and such people are not going to listen. But yet, to protect them, you might have to use force by the right means. That is the last resort. But when it comes to certain things, and if they're not listening, there is only one choice that you have. In fact, you have no choice. You have to learn to detach and let them make their mistake Yes, they will suffer, and as parents, you suffer more for them when they suffer. But this is where you have to let go so that they can also evolve their right thinking. Let them learn from life experiences. Sometimes, unless it is something so drastic, let them make a mistake, let them get hurt, let them feel and recognize sometimes that in that hurt they learned a lesson. Yes, it's a painful process, but this is where parents have to learn to let go, to detach, but not stop loving. They will care, they will feel it. But at the same time, you have to allow them to do some mistake, which they will do in their life. Allow them to do. And if you brought them up well, they won't go too far and they will learn from their mistakes.
Swamiji, we've been to lots of your talks and we've heard about detachment and we understand detachment also. But in that moment, when emotions are running high, it is really hard. Swamiji, can you help us with that?
Yes, it is very hard at that time, but all this detachment is not to be had at that crucial moment. It has to be cultivated over a period of time. And detachment means to love more. And to love more is to be more sensitive to the wants, the desires, the aptitudes, the thinking, the emotions of the one whom we love. And as we begin to do that and evolve with the children, and do not allow our selfishness to come in, and as their individuality is developing and it's misplaced as ego, don't allow your ego to come into picture, which has already crystallized in your teenage days, and therefore the anxieties for your children start coming up. Now, this all has to be done not at that moment, but has to be cultivated over a period of time. Yet, there will be moments that life as well as children challenge you, where they bring out these anxieties, these concerns, as well as bring out your ego and your insistence and your want also. And that is where it becomes a battle and an attachment. The moment you find yourself and both of you getting agitated and not able to communicate, rather than sulking or getting angry with each other, stop the conversation there, or even for that period, it could be sometimes certain days also, and say, let us, spend time with ourselves, think for ourselves, and let's get back into a discussion. Now, children very often I know will say, but I don't want to have a discussion. I made my mind up. You know how they do it. So they will say sometimes like that. But we've been teenagers also. When we are not even as teenagers, even when someone rudely and wrongly tells us something, it makes us start thinking. Don't think that they will not think over what you have said. But when it becomes into an argument or a fight, nobody is seeing the other person's viewpoint. So it is not that always the parents are right, or just as children think that they are always right and parents are outdated. No? But when we reflect, we are able to see the other person's viewpoint, even the fallacy of their argument, or even the complete wrong thinking. But only when we understand that, we know how to deal with it. So at that moment, detach from that situation if you can. I also understand because these questions keep coming. Sometimes it's an immediate emergency. No? There, who is most assertive will take over, and at the same time, one is bound to be disappointed. But at that moment, if there's something harmful going to happen, as I said earlier, it should be stopped there and then with the attitude, not that this is what I want, but this is what I think is best for this person. So at that moment, you should do that. But detachment has to be cultivated over a period of time. And at every stage of the child's growth, the parent has to detach slightly from certain things. For example, the first question Darren asked, that, as children, we had a purpose, we had the caring for them, etc. Now as they're teenagers, they want to be independent. They don't want to be smothered. They don't want to be looked out for. They want that, their own privacy. So there is where you have to detach from that role of not being concerned about them. You're concerned about them, but you're not always hovering over them, telling them that this is wrong, this is right. So this is a kind of detachment that you have to develop in your role as you grow. Not detachment from your sense of well-being of theirs. You cannot even detach from your anxiety for their well-being. Yeah? And that is not what you have to detach from. But you have to detach from the methodology or what you have got attached to that gives you a good feeling that, oh, so far they've come out good because I've been so-called overprotective about them. Yeah? This is where we have to detach at a subtler level within ourselves, not detach from the children, yeah? But from our own dependence or our own cocoon that we build, that we enjoyed in the earlier stages of motherhood or fatherhood. And even if you say in the professional world, our success also becomes our cocoon. Detachment is to break out from that cocoon to adventure forth into greater flights, into greater avenues, into greater wonders that we experience. So this is the subtle attachment that we have to give up. Not the attachment from children, etc., that people immediately understand and they think that we should not become anxious. So this is what we have to understand, the subtleness of it. We build attachment also by constantly or long-term association with certain thoughts, beliefs, and even certain actions. That's how we build our attachment. And therefore, to even detach, manasi vichintaya varam varam, again and again, we have to understand, we have to train our mind.
Thank you so much, Swamiji. I'm so grateful to have you in my life. And as you always have done, you've just given me a greater perspective on this challenge as well. And I feel like this is one of the hardest challenges that I've faced. So thank you, Swamiji.
Swamiji, as mission members, we want to bring our children up with spiritual values. What's the benefit of sending our children to Chinmaya International Residential School versus Bal Vihar and teaching at home?
Both are necessary and both have a great advantage. Pujya Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda, like all our great visionary masters, rishis, was a person who had an insight or had a vision for the future. Value systems, culture, which is necessary to develop the character of the child, to not only be a productive member of society, a person who not only takes but also shares with society, and therefore a person of noble character, a person who is an achiever, but at the same time, someone who is a producer for the benefit of society and therefore the growth of society. Therefore, our rishis did not want just a population, not a praja, but a supraja. Yeah? A population of people that will enhance the universe or enhance the world, not deplete the world. Therefore, the teaching of dharma, the teachings of values, the teachings of the spirit of sharing, all this was part of our upbringing and culture. It is only those who wanted to become expert in certain fields that require expert training or teachers went to Gurukulas or schools. Otherwise, the parent was the teacher. To learn a skill or a profession, you don't necessarily need a degree, of theories. You have to be hands-on. And this happened in the family, or you would be an apprentice to someone in the village or the city, and that's how you learned and trained hands-on. This was the education system when numbers or the population was not so large. Yeah? So systems was made. Even at that time, real culture and values were provided in the family, joint family structure, which over a period of time for increase in population, various aspects has dwindled to become just a couple with their children, a family. And therefore, with also both parents very often having to work to meet the financial requirements, etc., that this culture, these values that were to be gained in the family, as well as it used to be gained through, say, the village or the community that was close, and everybody assisted the children in that growth. And that's how you had also in the community certain parents or certain elders who would take the children and guide them. It's that same concept which has been adapted for modern times, that Pujya Gurudev realized that as it is required that children are not going to be getting it at home, therefore, if we have at least weekly classes where they will be able to learn about their culture, about their religion, and religion means the nice things that religion teaches for our development. So their spirituality, as well as recognize that method of independent right thinking. All this, that's why he started Bal Vihars. However, a majority part, as you have recognized even in your parenting, today it's not even the influence of the parents, it is to what institution we send our children, with what peers and that institution's vision and its practices, and the importance that institution of education gives is so important, because majority of now the thinking, the trend that is happening to the children is where we send them for education. And our life, our spiritual life, and our profession or family life have not to go parallel, it has to go integrated. Therefore, we cannot have education only for making a living. and the cultural upbringing, whether in the family or through our Balvihar sessions, where children learn values, and once it becomes their virtues, it will reflect in everything in their life. And that is the intention of Balvihar. Yet mentally, we continue to make them parallel. That spiritual aspect is one thing, but so-called practical life means family life as well as a profession. They are two different things. Relationships are different. And if they don't know how to integrate it in society, therefore, Pujya Gurudev thought about value-based education, and the importance of it is now being recognized by all education systems in the world. Earlier, it was a disciplined system. But today, we don't require just a disciplined system, because with the type of education that we gave the children, we taught them to break all disciplines, all restrictions, and in the name of freedom, we taught them licentiousness. In fact, all of us were taught like that. No? And therefore, that revolting nature in everything. Or a complete blind belief, say in science or in the education system. This is what education systems that people created over a period of time. But it was great visionaries like Gurudev who thought about value-based education. Value education, you teach them values, like in a laboratory, like in the family. But value-based education is that you integrate the value with the various subjects. Value-based management is that you integrate the value and see the benefit even in your profits when you integrate it with your management ideologies, your management procedures and systems and techniques. So Gurudev's vision of the Chinmaya Vidyalaya, Vidyalaya is a Sanskrit word, these are all modern English medium schools and some language schools. Gurudev conceived of for the children who are being brought in metropolitan cities as well as those who are being brought up in foreign countries. They should have a firm grounding in their culture, so a home far away from home, but even closer to the heart than home. And he conceived of the Chinmaya International Residential School, where modern education will be integrated with value-based education. So, with the value-based education, the children are getting much more than one weekly class. And very often, when parents used to come to bring their children, and they knew that besides getting the best academic studies in our school, and today let me tell you, in the country and internationally also in our international courses, we are amongst the top 6 schools, even in the international courses. So, the best of academics, but the complete atmosphere, which is a modern atmosphere, they do everything that modern children will do, but with the right understanding of their moderation as well as their values. Of course, as you know, you bring up your children, all children do not take it at the same intensity, but all are given an opportunity, and I will say all of them find some benefit. But as I used to tell the parents, You send your children here for value-based education. There is nothing like bringing the children up in the family. But even in olden times, for expert education, for their development, rather than just getting information and marks, all the people who wanted their children to become great and noble achievers send them to Gurukula, and that is residential schools, where they will get the best of ideals, environment, not just to learn but to grow. And that is the concept of the residential school. Though when we were brought up, and that's how schools maybe at that time were, that it was as though it's a prison camp. It is a very restrictive, strict discipline. And therefore, that if you did something wrong, you would be sent to a boarding school. But having come to CIRS, even the parents wish that not only our children and grandchildren study here, but wish we could come and study in such a school. So, to tell you that Bal Vihar and in the family, you can give them the culture, it is great. But the Chinmaya International Residential School, besides just education, has a greater system of value-based upbringing, which very often today, as you can see, parents who are single unit families have such difficulties, and with the best of their intentions are not able to do that. So I very often tell the parents that the most difficult years of their upbringing, which is difficult for them also and difficult for the parents also, and where they are influenced so strongly with their peers and sometimes very often negatively. You have an environment where they are in like-minded, progressive peers, as well as an environment which helps their all-round growth. This is the advantage of sending them to the residential school. But of course, we know that it is not everybody can do that for various reasons. May not be there for everybody, but I would encourage most of you who are abroad and know the vision of such a school, for their children's benefit, they get much more than what they get in a weekly class. In fact, when people come to CIRS, that is Chinmaya International Residential School, they are so fascinated with the interest of the children who don't have once a week a Bal Vihar class. They in fact have it every day. Not just as a class, as a complete growth process.
Swamiji, that was absolutely brilliant. And I think that so many key points were made about integrating education values with their subjects and having them immersed in an environment with like-minded peers and giving that all-round education with like-minded people. There were so many amazing benefits of doing that, and also not having things separately, like spiritual is parallel to education, but bringing them together is brilliant. Thank you so much, Swamiji.